Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you a 3 versus 3 on Pegasus Bridge, and in this one I'm doing something all of you guys have been asking for, which is playing Panzer-Lehr. And, well, my whole team is. Betts and Haymaker, we all decided to play Panzer-Lehr, and therefore you will get a good taste of it. Hopefully we'll quell the masses and your obsession for this deck, because I'm not a massive fan of it, honestly, and I don't play it very often. So I just decided to dive in. We thought we'd handicap ourselves, take 3 Panzer-Lehr decks, which means we have literally no Phase A capability, and see how we get on, because it would really demonstrate how effective you can be in Phase A, or in this case, necessarily not be. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We're playing against 2 101st Airborne decks and a Guards Armoured. The 101st Airborne decks deemed to be possibly one of the best Phase A decks at the moment, or battle groups. So there's that, and of course we are playing one of the considered worst Phase A battle groups ourselves. So there's a bit of a mismatch going on in Phase A, that's for sure. But the idea was, especially for me in particular, was to play just defensively in general. So if I switch it to my point of view, I'll talk us through what our team was going to do as a strategy, and we did have that advantage going into this game. I was on chat with my teammates, but we thought it would be funny to try and win a game as 3 Panzer-Lehr, and especially against 201st. We were having a cracking laugh about this. Unfortunately, I didn't get the live gameplay recorded, otherwise I would have probably put that up. But either way, here we are. Our strategy is as follows. Betts and Haymaker are going to be working together to push into the town on the left side, and then I'm literally just going to be defending the right on my own. So they're going to try and push as much as they can to the limited capacity of this battle group, but it generally just turns into sort of like a defensive thing until we can roll over into where the points come in. Phase C, we get 150 points each per minute, which is 450 points on the map. That's like 1 King Tiger a minute. Moving into Phase C, obviously that's not quite how it works, but there you go. You would, I think after 3 minutes you get a King Tiger. So each of us would bring in a King Tiger, which is technically 3 or 1 per minute, if you see what I mean. Anyway, as we move off, I'll show you guys what I have brought in as my Phase A units. I have quite an odd deck, honestly, but I think all of the Panzer-Lehr decks are pretty odd. Either way, packs, I've got the Panzer Grenadiers with MG34s and Command Infantry, pretty standard just infantry setup, and yeah, just packs. I think these are pack 38s with the 10 AP power, and then I've also got a 258 out in the open here, and then with my first tick of resources I bring in some recon, because I completely forgot to bring in recon. So here I have my pack 38 set up. And this is pretty much how I would recommend it. If you want to ever play defensively, just rely on AT guns as much as possible, and limit your infantry use. So in this case, I'm just going to plonk a unit of Panzer Grenadiers into the hard points that I have, and I'm going to play relatively defensively. So I don't want to fight through these forests, especially this one where he can walk from one side to the other. I just want to defend in the hard points that are the buildings, which mean my infantry squads take a lot longer to kill, making them much more cost efficient. So you don't want to like waste your Panzer Grenadiers, especially in Phase A, by trying to push forwards with them. With this deck, it's a complete waste of time. You're just going to end up running out of infantry by Phase C, and you won't have any to support your tanks, which is like the worst crime ever. Either way, push forward this half track over here, and I was wondering what could see it, and well, it turned out to be the tanks here. They were aiming at it, and I was wondering what they were aiming at, but yeah, I soon found out when that blew up. But that's okay. I've still got this Panzer Grenadier here. He's covering the road. Haymaker's just going to be covering the middle of the map with the Pack 38 here. And then they are trying to Panzerwerfer the town here so they can push on it slightly with some spear troop from Haymaker, and over here Betts has just put up a defensive perimeter with Panzer Grenadiers and all of the half tracks. Now something that you really need to do here is be wary of using your half-tracks effectively. In the middle, I did just pop one of his Cromwells. It went into line of sight of my Pack 38. So this Pack 38 is in a really nice position because it can sort of ambush things that try and come down the road. In this case, the Cromwell was trying to like sneak forwards, probably to get line of sight onto either my Panzer-Grenadiers or some of these half-tracks and pop them. But as you can see, what I've done is I've actually hidden this one, this half-track. I've hidden this half-track. I hide this half-track. I just keep them in bushes so they can't be seen. And this one's hidden on the right side of the tree patch, and I don't want to reveal any of them. The only reason you would ever reveal the half-tracks in Phase A is if they're pushing on you with infantry and you need that fire support. Otherwise, keep them hidden because they're going to get sniped by AT guns, they're going to get sniped by like light vehicles. You just don't want to lose them because they are assets in their own way. You know, they do have the 7 HE power 600 meter machine guns, which are quite effective. So here, Pack 38 is going to be attacking the command carrier, which is fine. 258 is actually being engaged by the 6-pounder. In this case, it was kind of annoying because the 258 was pushed back by the morale getting a bit too low, so it was trying to fall back already, which meant that it didn't fire its second shot soon enough in order to force his 6-pounder back before my 258 fell back. So either way, at this point, with that AT gun presence being known, the best bet here is just to get my 258 out of line of sight and save that for when they try and push on me. I've got an Alpha Glider here as well to discover anything that's coming out of this tree line, and my AT gun does finish off the command carrier. So yeah, just taking a completely defensive stance. I'm even letting them push me in. Like, suffering a +1 lead to the enemy at this point is not an issue for the Panzer-Lehr, because you'll make it up into the Phase B and C. However, Betz and Haymaker are currently pushing relatively hard. You can see Betz is using the same light vehicles as I am, the 258s. These guys have the 9 HE power main gun on them, which are great for crushing infantry at range. So he's going to be using Panzer Grenadiers assisted by the 258s, and he has a couple of Pumas to push on the enemy at the moment. And they are currently taking this town off the 101st player on this side, which shouldn't really happen. So if we just go to the neutral perspective for a second, we can see there's one 101st player on our far left. There's one 101st player dealing with 2 of our players, so Betz and Haymaker. And then over on the right side, I'm controlling the Guards Armoured player, which is fine by me. Guards Armoured can't push that hard early on, but you can see he is going to be pushing the rifles through this forest, which is exactly the reason I didn't have my own Panzer Grenadiers there. Panzer Grenadiers do beat rifles, but I don't want to lose any of my Panzer Grenadiers in Phase A. It's just not a good thing to do. You want to save as many of them as you can to Phase B and C. So I'll switch it back to our point of view, and Betz isn't being pressured much on this left side. Yes, he's losing ground slightly, but this player over on this far left wasn't putting much pressure onto the hard points, so the buildings on this left side. He was just trying to get down here, and I guess if he gets a presence into these buildings further on, that's actually okay. But Betz is just going to shift over some of his mobile fire support in the form of the half-tracks to help deal with any infantry push on that side. Meanwhile here, these airborne rifles are being hammered by multiple half-tracks, the 258s, the Pumas and the Panzer Grenadiers. I'm really surprised not to see like off-map artillery. I don't think our opponents actually relied on off-map artillery. They actually have the M1 howitzers and the 60mm mortars. Actually, that's a point though. 101st don't get their decent off-map until Phase B, so that makes sense. So they're just relying on mortars and the howitzers at the moment, which I guess is a good idea, just to try and pin down some of these half-tracks and so on. But currently, not too much going on. Big concentration of infantry on the left is going to get hammered by Haymaker's Panzerwerfer, and that did so much damage to the opposing forces there, really crushing that advance that tried to come in to the left side. There is some reinforcements coming up. We are still getting some points, of course, and I think Panzer-Lehr does get enough to hold the line early. You know, even under pressure, Panzer Grenadiers are fantastic defensive forces, so they are going to survive for a long time, and I think that's the reason why Panzer-Lehr can work in this scenario. But normally, like, it's just you can get overwhelmed if people know how to play against you. So we are lacking obviously infantry. If they spam us with infantry and force us to use my panzer grenadiers to engage them, then fine. But they need to be pushing in phase A. At the moment, I'm not being pushed very hard by the Guards Armoured. This guy's used the 6-pounder to kill off my 258 on the far right, and then the 6-pounder on the left comes forward and takes out my half-track. Not really much I can do about that. I do have a mortar carrier to harass his line, but basically, at the moment, because I'm not being pushed super hard, it's not too much of an issue. And I can just remain where I am. This 6-pounder gets a lovely line of sight down the road and actually pops my recon vehicle as it was moving to the right side to assist against the 6-pounders, but yeah, that gets killed, so there we go. And not much I could have done about that. So I'm bringing up my own Panzerwerfer, and just like you saw on the left side with Haymaker using the Panzerwerfer, Panzerwerfers are a really good way of stopping pushes. So the entire strategy of a Panzer-Lehr deck is to hold the line enough that you can get to phase C and roll over the enemy. You do put yourself in a bit of a time limit because you only have, what, 20-25 minutes in phase C to actually use all of your units to make back the ground that you may have lost. However, all of the artillery, including the mortar carrier and the Panzerwerfer, can really help you in achieving that goal, so getting to phase C. Panzerwerfers, the reason they do it is because they panic units for so long. And they can also be very effective at destroying enemy units as well. So a concentrated push into the middle sector here would be very easily countered by a Panzerwerfer. In this case, I brought up the Panzerwerfers to deal with the 6-pounders, because without those 6-pounders, my opponent is going to be less likely to be confident to move forwards on the far right side. By the way, meanwhile over here, Betts is pushing back up with his half-tracks now. He's using the mobile fire support here to charge down the 101st player. So his teammate Haymaker used the really good barrage to basically pin down all of that infantry, and it made it retreat across the open towards their lines. And Betts is taking full advantage of this by moving up his half-tracks and pushing them back. Now this is a big problem for our opponents, because if they don't have like an AT gun on this side, then all these half-tracks are free to do whatever they want. And of course, the opponent is going to be responding with AT guns, which is the right thing to do. However, he needs to get them into this tree line, and he needs to start popping these half-tracks, because if you let half-tracks get out of control, then there's not really much you can do about them in the end of the game, especially when they are supported by heavy units. So now my Evercloud here, these guys are being hit very hard because the Recce keeps spotting them, and then the fire support from the Cromwell 6 is coming in to try and take them out, which is fair enough. That was a really nice move by this Recce. This Recce got really annoying because I didn't have anything to kill off his units effectively, but he always had a unit to deal with my Elfclad, which was really a pain in the ass, because my 258 couldn't sit here because he had all these AT guns, and I'm trying to get rid of them with the Panzerwerfer here. One thing to note with this Panzerwerfer is I actually used 5 rockets each time, so you can see this is already burning, and it still is, right? And over on this left side, burning again. That's because I did this with 2 barrages, so you can fire 5 rockets, move the Panzerwerfer so it stops firing, and then fire the last 5 with the same sort of salvo, so it doesn't have to like reload, like for the massive reload time that's currently got going down here. It doesn't have to use like the massive reload in order to fire again until it gets down to 10 rockets, then it fully reloads, and then you fire again, right? So either way, mortar comes in, kills off my Elfcladder, really annoying, and I have no recon on this right side. I don't actually have much even defending on the right side. The only reason that this is holding is because I have a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx just hid behind this tree line. And that's something that is definitely worth considering. These sort of cheap units, like KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx, another notable one is the carrier that brings in the Flak 88. You can use them to like hold the front line by just hiding them in areas. Same with half-tracks, you know, but half-tracks are a bit more expensive for that. But, you know, KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx, you don't necessarily use them too often. They're pretty specific situations where you can use them at max range. And it's just useful to use them to hold the front line like this, and it basically says to the enemy, there's something here, they don't know what it is, but it could be anything. And maybe they're thinking, why would I move tanks over here? Because there might be an AT gun here. Yes, there's an AT gun here, which could ambush something, but that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking there's stuff over here probably, because the line's so far pushed up, but it's literally just a Kubel MG. So I'm using my 257 here just to try and mortar where I think his recon is. This was a guess, assuming that the recce had moved forwards, but in the end I was a bit off target. Doesn't really matter. Over on the left side, Betts has foiled the attack over here, so he's literally just got a load of half-tracks covering this far left side, and our opponent is just trying to get his AT guns into a position where they are effective. Betts' Pack 38 is trying to go up against an M8, which is fair enough. And they didn't manage to push into the far right of the town just yet. Kind of got repelled, but they still have all of these half-tracks alive, as you can see. And that's going to make it almost impossible for the opponents to push infantry across the open. We're also now into Phase B, so we're starting to get quite a lot more points than we were. We're still getting the lowest Phase B income out of like all of the battle groups, but as long as we can continue to hold, it's fine. And the main thing about Phase B with the Panzer-Lehr is it gives you access to your extra infantry in order to hold the line more where you need to. So you're still playing defensively in Phase B. You always should be like playing defensively with the Panzer-Lehr. Try and get up to 50%, hold your ground. And if you're not, and you're giving ground to the enemy, then that's fine. You know, as long as it's only a +1, you're doing okay. As soon as you get into Phase C, that's when you have to start punishing your opponents. And the idea is that you use Phase B to set up for that attack. So you'll start to bring in your infantry in order to support your heavier tanks that you'll start to be bringing in Phase C. So for example, this is an example of that. I've got a Befehl Panzer IV. I'm not buying my super heavy Tigers. I do have Tigers in this deck, and I also have Befehl Panthers. But in Phase B, that's not what you want to be bringing in. You want to be bringing in the rest of your AT guns and your infantry in order to prepare to support your larger tanks into a solid push in Phase C. That's the idea. At the moment, Betts and Haymaker are just taking advantage of the situation they're in. You can see here infantry revealing itself, so Haymaker's just going to bring up the half-tracks to join in. And, well, ideally, at this point, all of these half-tracks would just get hit by an off-map artillery strike. So let's see if our opponents have actually brought one in. There is off-map on this side. So this is the 356mm off-map artillery. That's potentially what's going to help him break through on this left side. And you can see he has used it here onto Betts' half-tracks, which is a pretty decent move to help him try and get through. But what happens here is my Focke-Wulf comes in. We've got Haymaker with his ME-109s and Betts with the Focke-Wulf 190 as well. We're going to take down both of these Mustangs of the opponent. And then we can actually see the 4 GPA here thanks to this Spear Troop Recon squad. So we're all going to go in for basically a strafing run onto that. Fortunately, that has armor. 2 front armor, and it was happily placed facing the edge of the map. So if that was turned the other way around and was facing away from the map, that probably would have got killed, and we were focusing that so hard because we know how much damage it can do. And that is what they need to start using in this phase in order to push their infantry forwards. That's what the 101st is so good at. Generally, they would have had a better positioning in Phase A, but our player on the left side didn't play particularly well. He's trying to move infantry across the open, which is never going to work. If he had got infantry into this tree line, fair enough, but now he should be relying on that off-map artillery to try and crush these positions and actually make some ground. Currently he's using his artillery to soften the middle where he's not actually pushing, and that's not a good idea. Either way, on this right side, Panzer Grenadiers trying to move up here into a position, still going to get hit by like mortars and the Cromwell 6. I'm moving over my half-tracks to try and help deal with these like AT weapons. I've got my mortar on the case as well, but the 6-pounder on the far right is just going to destroy both of those vehicles, and it was my bad for trying that, but I wanted to try and get these AT guns out of the way. Basically, like I said, prepping for my heavier tanks to come up. If I can get rid of those 6-pounders, then that's great, right? I can be happy with moving up with my heavy tanks in Phase C, knowing that those 6-pounders are all dead. and if I can destroy them roughly all at the same time, then that's fine with me. Here I'm just going to go for a full 10 rocket barrage onto the center there to try and blow up a 6-pounder, and indeed I do. Over here I've got my Pak-38 trying to ambush the M5 half-track, and that fortunately lands its first shot. Panzer-Grenadiers here holding off multiple rifle squads, the motorized rifles. I'm even using my half-track here to hit the rifle leader. And if I can make the rifle leader surrender, then all of this will surrender. So that's what I'm trying to go for here. Panzer-Grenadier is just so good, and with those guys pinned down, the guys all surrender basically. And that works out really nicely. So Panzer-Grenadiers so much better than rifles. Here the Pak-38 is going to be going for the shot onto the Stuart, and does get transmission damage. Not going to be enough to actually kill the thing, but makes it less mobile. And well, since the Pak-38 is actually in heavy cover, it does allow it to get out of there, so that's okay. So I saved the AT gun, and I did a little bit of damage. The Panzer-Grenadiers there really saved the day. So now we've got command carrier here breaking through. I should have had my Befehl Panzer IV maybe a bit further up here, because it would have been able to take that out, but half-track does the job, so that's fine. So still prepping, and here comes a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx. Now this is basically the only reason that this is already on the map in Phase B is because I wasn't being pushed hard enough on this right side. So I took the advantage early on to took the initiative early on to just bring up a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx straight away, because I could afford to do so. Furthermore, my teammates also had the income to be able to do it, so already a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ coming up for Haymaker, Betts already has his one on the left, and we're all just preparing to try and push out here. Our opponents are bringing in the off-map artillery now, which is good to see, but not really taking advantage of where they've hit. So here, there's like nothing here on both sides. Like, if they've just hit that with an off-map, there should be infantry running straight in there to secure it. But there isn't, and that's just giving it away to us. Either way, Panzer IV is now moving up here alongside one of my recon vehicles, and these guys are the ones that I have prepped to assist my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ in advancing forwards. So we're starting Phase C now. Things haven't really changed much on my side of things. My front line hasn't changed at all. I've tried to make like damage on this right side to my opponent's AT guns in order to prepare for my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ coming up, because the last thing I want to get is shot in the side by a cheap AT gun. That would just suck. And I brought up actually a Pak-40, and this Pak-40 again was to help take out the 6-pounders at long range, because they do have HE rounds which allows them to snipe at 1,200 meter range, and from there they are just in range, as you can see. So if a 6-pounder turns up here, this Pak-40 can fire upon it, which is exactly what I want to see. So my opponent's still trying to push through with the motorized rifles. He's moved into Phase C now, and we are going to be starting to see the M5 half-tracks become available. Panzer-Grenadiers, though, do have Panzerfausts, and this one was moved over from the left side to assist here, since this guy went down to 1 health. Just keeping him alive is important, though, because it provides presence on the front line. My Aufklärer do get smashed, which was annoying, because that's another recon squad that's gone down, and I didn't actually have that much infantry-based recon in this deck during this game. I changed it straight afterwards, but I only had like 4 cards of Aufklärer available, and then the rest of it was like motorized recon, which is fine, but only if you don't lose your recon this easily. And since my opponent had been using his recce to spot my own recon, I lost them quite easily. So he's busy pushing through here with his motorized rifles and so on. He's started to move up his tanks as well. He's got this Cromwell 6 here alongside a Stuart, and he also has his AEC Mark III and a Firefly further back. I have my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ preparing to move up on the right side. I'm trying to keep it like roughly in cover. At the moment it's blocking its line of sight from the left side, and I'm firing at the right side. Just to try and get rid of like any presence over here before I start pushing forwards. Bringing up the infantry to support in the center. Just make sure that that doesn't fall. Bringing up the Pioneers. Fantastic units for fighting in these tree lines. 3-star infantry squad with a 22 HE power grenade. Literally not much is going to beat that, which is pretty nice. And, well, here comes the support from the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx. Never use a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx on its own. Always bring up multiple units to support it. In this case, 2 SBW233s. They are the 1000 meter support recon, and they have a 9 HE power cannon on them, which is perfect for dealing with AT guns. So that's what these guys are for. This SBW232 is there to give the extra veterancy to the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ. And also the autocannon on that SBW232 is good for tearing apart infantry. So that's basically what all of these units are there for. And the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is there for just popping tanks and other armoured vehicles. Over on this left side, Haymaker and Betts' KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ were constantly being harassed, as they should be. Like, B-26B Marauders is fine. Also, the artillery, that's good as well. Just make sure that those KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ can't move. Same should happen on the right. As soon as he sees my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ, he can try and start arting it and start like off-mapping it or whatever he has, and hopefully that will be enough. Unfortunately, Guards Armoured doesn't have too much of that, I think, available on their deck. In this case, I use my Panzer-Lehr to hit all of the units that were just on the other side of this tree line, and I use my Pioneers to start moving up and clearing out the infantry there. Furthermore, my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ has been pushed up now, using the SBW233s as fire support. I'm trying to get them into the 1000 meter range to spot anything that's in this tree line. And whilst all of these units are falling back, my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is just having a field day blowing all those chaps up. We spot the recce thanks to the 233, and the Pioneers here are happy to clean up the rest of this infantry. This is another motorized rifle squad. They have 122 HE power grenade, and, well, boom. Goodbye to the motorized rifles. That's what Pioneer squads are used for. Here we can see the 233s have revealed the 6-pounder by moving into range, and they're both going to pop those off, ready for my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ to continue to move forwards. Now, what the opponent could have done, since the SBW233s actually have to be pretty damn close in order to spot the 6-pounders in cover, he could have put them on return fire so that he had the jump onto my 233s, and without the 233 recon, the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is blind and probably would have been able to be stunned enough for that to be killed by a side shot from all of the AT guns he had in here. So he has what? The AT gun on the right, I killed the one in the middle, and I killed the one on the left side, which was being pushed up with his little force here. So yeah, he had this one on the right, and if, say, my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is starting to drive to the left side, and he keeps this one hidden, yeah, I'm going to drive up my 233s to this tree line, but they can get popped by the 233s, or the 6-pounder can get popped, yeah. The 6-pounder can pop the 233s with a quick shot, and the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is probably not going to be able to aim on the 6-pounder enough before it actually hides again. If we actually jump to his point of view, let's see what he can see coming. So we're playing against Sherburn. He can see this stuff moving up on the right side. He can see the recon vehicle, he can see the 233 and the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ. The best bet in this situation is to actually focus the fire support vehicles, so the 233 and the 232, and leave the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ vulnerable to AT and other weapons. I blow up his Firefly here, that's easy done. KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is going to be continuing to destroy the rest of those units. One of my Panzer Grenadiers here that was left on 1 health finally gets destroyed. These Pioneers are slowly moving up, and that's fine. I'm trying to get them into range of the 17-pounder just to finish that off, because the last thing I want is to have a 17-pounder to side-shot my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ. But the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is actually going to get the jump onto the 17-pounder, and goodbye to that. Pioneer here is going to get hit hard by the AAC Mark III, but trying to get the 234 up here. And what's going to happen is the 234 is going to get on target, start to do a little bit of morale damage there, not too much. It's just going to distract it whilst the Panzer IV comes up, and weapon damage, nice. Okay, so that's going to be good enough to disable the AAC Mark III. And with the AAC Mark III starting to fall back, it's eventually going to go into line of sight my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ unless the Panzer IV gets the kill first. In this case it does. So this is the start of the very slow Phase C push that comes about in Panzer-Lehr. So Phase A was defensive, Phase B was defensive, and now we've moved into Phase C where I can actually do something. I have a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx. So here's another AT gun that should have been on return fire and waited until I got closer, but yeah, that's a 17 pounder. Should be enough to deal with a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ at close range, if you can let the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ get close enough. But again, moving forwards to 233 to spot the AT guns so that my fire support can open up before that can fire. And in this case, he actually changed the target of the 17 pounder, and that actually allows me to pin that down and kill it very easily. So he changes the target onto the 232. Would have been nice if he could have killed that, but I could have just brought up another one, so that didn't particularly matter. And yeah, in this case, 233 is just moving backwards and forwards to find the enemy AT guns, just make sure there's none there, so that KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ can safely move forwards to the left. And this is where I'm starting to make some ground. So the 50-50 line's sort of like here, I believe. Yeah, we're kind of just starting to breach the 50-50 now on my side of things. Over on the left side, well, yeah. Betts has 2 KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ here. Haymaker has 1. There's another one coming up from Haymaker. And even with AT guns, there's not really much the 101st can do at this point unless they continue to off-map and somehow make all of these KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ surrender. This game basically fielded the entire amount of KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZs that were probably built during World War II. So it's like the King Tiger division coming up and attacking the opponents right now. Again, this is just an example of me clearing out anything that's in this tree line. Moving up the Panzer-Grenadiers here to bait the Rifles squad to revealing itself. And this allows me to get this one-man Panzer-Grenadier squad into the tree line just to figure out if there's anything there or not. And this is like the reason you keep one-man squads alive. A lot of people think like, oh, one man on his own, what's he going to do? You know, he's useless, right? That's not the case. A Panzer-Grenadier squad like this one chap on his own, he can do so much with his life. He can make a family. He can, I'm sorry. No, he can take this tree line and basically tell me that there's nothing there. He never has to actually fire a shot. He can just literally walk into there, provide me with basically recon. So my units over here are being hit. The 233 actually gets destroyed by the 6-pounder over on the far left. This is actually quite a nice positioning of the 6-pounder because it means that when my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ pushes forwards, I get side shot. But again, he revealed its position too soon, and that's the biggest mistake. The biggest counter to Panzer-Lehr is like hidden AT guns that you don't know about. So that's why I'm having to move this 233 forwards and discover all of this stuff. Tanks, I don't care about. Achilles, what's he going to do against 21 armor? But the AT guns hidden and in the side armor, that matters, right? Again, 6-pounder is going to be opening up onto the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ, revealing its position, and goodbye to the 6-pounder. So on this right side, I can see a command carrier coming over here. He's going to be bringing up some command units. And the Piet squad tries to take out my 233. Here what's going to happen is the Panzer-Grenadiers actually blow up the command carrier with the command infantry in. And, well, that Panzer-Grenadier paid itself off on its own, and he's still alive. What a hero. So I'm bringing up the infantry now to support my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ. Yes, I'm kind of putting them into risk of being hit by the Shermans here, but I just wanted to risk it. You know, I have the fast move. I can get them down this road, and then once they're unloaded, they push into this tree line. And what that does is allow me to advance the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ without having to worry about there being either anything on the other side of here, or further up this tree line that's sneaking down, like the AT gun we spotted earlier. Now, even more of a hero, Panzer-Grenadier pinning down a motorized rifle on his own with his MG42. This guy literally had a Panzerfaust on him, he had an MG42 on him, and he had an MP40 on him, and he's just running about, just massacring everyone. This guy, hero, pins down a motorized rifle squad in the open on his own. Pretty impressive. Either way, here comes all of my infantry, Pioneers, available in Phase C, I think. You know, I think basically I'd saved enough infantry at this point that I could bring up like 4 squads of infantry and push into this tree line. This isn't something you would normally see from Panzer-Lehr because they've run out of infantry by now, but because I wasn't like that hard pressed in the early game, I was able to have enough infantry to support my advance moving into phase C, and this is where things really start to rack up. I can suppress the 17 pounder there with the mortar, and I can start to push up with the pioneers in order to just not even kill anything, but just make sure that the tree line is safe for my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx to move up. Everything is about this KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx right now. 232 shouldn't have been firing here, probably should have put that on return fire so that it didn't reveal itself, but either way, KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx comes up here and, well, I'm just going to be blowing the hell out of this Achilles. Well, Firefly tries to sneak out and get a shot, but that's not going to happen. And 232 actually knocks out the crew of the Achilles, and goodbye to that as well. So, see, the guy on the left side, the 101st player, does surrender because, well, Haymaker and Betts are moving up currently with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx. I believe Betts did lose one of his KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx, so there would have been 6. But I think one of them probably got hit by an AT gun or something. Either way, what needs to happen here is the bombing strikes need to just stun all of these, and they just need to make them surrender. That's the only way that they can deal with that. In the middle, I'm just trying to make some ground here, moving up some pioneers with my half-tracks. This half-track's pretty happy to just sit right in front of the rifle leader here, since the rifle leader had run out of Piets. So I'm just basically mowing those guys down, no problem. On this right side, pioneers getting ready to move into the tree line, or at least just protect the tree line. Like, okay, this is another thing that you can do. I don't need this pioneer squad to be in the tree line to know there's nothing there, because they're close enough that if anything was in the tree line, they would see it. So what I can do is sit just the other side of the tree line, meaning that if anything does go into the tree line, I can destroy it. And the only things that can come into the tree line are infantry, AT guns, and support weapons, which will all get destroyed by the 100-meter grenade of the pioneers. I'm moving a half-track round here to basically see what's there. It reveals an AT gun that was waiting to ambush me. Fair enough, cool beans. 232 actually manages to pick off a half-track in that engagement, and even the even this half-track bounced a shot from the Cromwell here before being taken out by an MG. So there we go. Either way, KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ is just going to try and sneak around here. I know there's only one AT gun on this right side. Easy done. Again, infantry trying to come up here, motorized rifles, and goodbye grenade. Boom. That's what I should call them. They should be named from now on. The 22 HG power grenades should be called goodbye grenades, because they literally just blow squads to pieces. So Panzer-Lehr, have been using this throughout the entire game just to solidify my position and stun stuff that was pushing towards me over on this left side. I use it to, well, crush here. I used it on the right to crush this tree line, and I don't know how, but this Cromwell actually bounced a shot from the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ. Actually, it might have been from the Puma. Yeah, I do have a Puma now. Again, more recon to basically make up for the fact that this 233 has its tracks broken and can't do anything. So, brought up a Puma to provide me with recon. This AT gun, it's a 17 pounder, and it's at about 600 meter range. Pretty close. Had a chance of penetrating the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ, but 21 front armors. Pretty beastly, and it wasn't going to be enough anyway. And I did have the Panzer-Lehr, but I was a bit impatient, so either way, I think what ended up happening there was the Panzer-Lehr took out the Cromwell with a rocket direct hit, and even as Sherman tries to creep out and sideshot my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ, but I already knew it was there, so I just quickly turned the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ using the right-click drag command in order to face the armor towards the Sherman before it came towards me, especially after just killing the stuff on the right, since I knew it was going to be hit by the Panzer-Lehr anyway. So this is probably the most scary position to be in with all of these units, because I'm surrounded on all sides. You know, I've punched through a hole, but I'm surrounded on all sides by potential AT positions. So like an AT gun could be sneaking through here, for example. An AT gun could be waiting in this tree line. All I've got to go on is this Puma hasn't spotted any of it yet. In this case, Typhoon AT actually comes in and stuns my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ. Fair enough, going to force that to go back for a bit. But what I've done is actually reinforce myself with a Befehl Panther, as opposed to another KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ, because I feel at this point, you know, I don't necessarily need another one. What's it going to do at this, like, I could try and push it through here, but it's just like walking into an ambush, so that's a bad idea. I've actually brought up Hummels instead. Like, I invested money into long-range artillery. These are 27 HE power, 2,800 meter range artillery, and they can seriously do a lot of damage. So I'm using those currently to try and push in the middle here, or at least just stop them from pushing into me, whilst I continue to move up on the right side. And I'm using my infantry here just to basically discover what the opponents have over on this right side. Use a pioneer to throw a grenade over the tree line without the half track actually being able to see me, and blow that up. So that was nice, and that's pretty much revealed there's no AT guns on this right side. So my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx is quite happy to move up and just face left, because that's the only place that there's going to be anything at the moment. I even have this pioneer squad moving up to take control of this compound, and that will again secure the fact that if anything pops out of here, like a AT gun or something, it's just going to get pinned down by the machine guns of a pioneer squad. So KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx is going to miss a shot onto the Humber Mark III. Luckily got away from that, and I'm just going to continue towards the largest concentration of enemy armor because it's a KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ, and what can they do? I was kind of scared that this was a Cromwell, and if it was, then my KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ at close range could get blown up, but again, not too worried. I have a second KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ here now, and my preferred Panther is actually sitting back. I kind of forgot about it in the end, but yeah, this KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ has come up instead, a bit more concentrating on keeping that alive. And yeah, actually I think this was the new one here. Yeah, this was the new one here. This one's the old one, because what happened was one of the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ fell back, yeah, and then the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ moved back up whilst my other KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ came onto the field. So yeah, sorry about that, didn't notice myself. This KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ completely fine up against the Crusader AA Mark I at this range, so just gonna blow that in the face, and 3 armor somehow manages to not get penetrated, but then gets penetrated in the side armor by the MG. So there we go. KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ here, gonna turn around in time to receive its shot in towards the front armor, but well, goodbye to that tank. That was just a Cromwell trying to take a cheeky side shot, which is fair enough, but yeah, it didn't work out in the end. And my pioneers here just happily just running through and seeing if there's anything for me to worry about. One thing I was worried about was the fact that this house wasn't being pushed over the front line. It was sort of going, you can see how the front line was sort of tilting around it. Actually turned out it was because the Humber Mark III is here, and therefore I don't want to really stick a pioneer squad right in front of a Humber. I let it try and get a few grenade hits, but it didn't work out, so I just withdraw that into the other building. And the motorized rifle squad are set up for an ambush, but I moved this pioneer squad up the tree line, and that's going to find that, and goodbye to them. And before, well, we can break the whole way through, that is game. And after 40 minutes and 28 seconds, we win. And it says total defeat because I had to reload the replay to get to the end screen, but here we are. And if we jump to the team perspective, you can see that myself and Bets by the end of the game did super well, and so did Haymaker, honestly, we all did. 4,249 kills to 1,715 losses for Bets, 4,134 kills to 1,175 losses for myself, and 3,574 kills to 1,550 losses for Haymaker. And basically what ended up happening by the end of that game, on the neutral perspective, I didn't actually get a chance to show you guys, but there was nothing left on the map. Like, literally nothing for our opponents. They didn't push us early enough, and that really stung them later on. That's for sure. If we have a look at the history, Command Cromwell there is going to pick up a APC or half track of mine. But then as we continue, the majority of the kills are allied, and this is the Guards Armored player. His AT guns did do pretty well in killing probably their points worth, but they just weren't like hidden enough. They weren't kept on return fire enough to be used effectively to ambush the heavier tanks moving into phase B and C. And furthermore to that, both like the 101st players and the Guards Armored players well, all of the players on the enemy team just didn't push hard enough in Phase A. Like, I was playing pure defensive, like, that's just how I was playing, both through Phase A and Phase B. In Phase B, you set up for the King Tigers so that you can use your King Tiger to start pushing forwards. I kind of did it a bit early because I was a bit worried about my line being below 50-50, and in some cases that you kind of forced to do that, but you can use that King Tiger defensively, right, as well, until you have the support vehicles you need to push forward. So I brought in a King Tiger, then I brought in 2 recon vehicles and a command vehicle to accompany it, and that's what you have to do with those King Tigers. But even before all that, yeah, like I can't stress enough how important it is to put pressure onto a Panzer-Lehr player and force them to use like their infantry that they don't want to use. Because the only reason that I could quite happily in Phase B and C move up was because I had infantry to take the tree lines. And with that infantry that wouldn't have been there if I was under pressure in Phase A, or without that infantry that wouldn't have been there if they got killed in Phase A, then I would have been in a big predicament because I would have had to defend myself a lot more. But I just wasn't under pressure. I think my opposing player invested on 2 Cromwells that got killed very quickly at the start of the game, and then didn't push with the rifles into my lines, and he would have had a lot more rifles than I had Panzer Grenadiers, and he could have exploited that so much, but he didn't, and that's pretty much how it ended up. I used my Panzerwerfer to sort of, I would have been using my Panzerwerfer to stop those infantry pushes, but he would have had enough that he could have pushed in hard, and I don't think as a Guards Armored player you need to play armored vehicles in Phase A to beat a Panzer-Lehr player. You just don't. Because a Panzer-Lehr player in Phase A is going to be playing defensively, and as you saw, I brought in multiple AT guns in order to hold my front line against vehicles early on. And therefore, in my mind, you should always be pushing with your infantry first, and that forces the enemy to engage you with their own infantry, especially considering like the availability of anything in Phase A for the Panzer-Lehr is so low. Of course, this requires the knowledge of that in order to take advantage of it, but because I wasn't focused in Phase A, it enabled me to set up in Phase B and then just crush the rest of his units in Phase C. And as you saw, when I managed to breach around the edge of that tree line, all of his Fireflies, his Cromwells, his Stuarts, they got popped, and that was game over. So that's pretty much it. If we look at the losses, Pack 38's killed 2 Cromwells here in the command carrier. That was the one in the middle of the map. This one killed just a command carrier before getting killed, and he did focus down my AT guns properly, which was good of him, for sure, but he just didn't take advantage of that. But then comes the KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZbx and blows up half of his army. Yeah. 3 Fireflies, Sherman, Achilles, Cromwell, AT guns, like 2 6-pounders, a 17-pounder, and a Stuart. There you go. That's how much that KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ killed. It literally paid itself off 4 times over, I think it is. Yeah, roughly 4 times over. 232 that was supporting killed off some rifles leader, and the VulcanHDGaming and a half-track and some motorized rifle, and then the second KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ comes along, picks up the rest of the stuff, so mainly just the supporting units like the Sexton artillery and the anti-air. So yeah, this KYAZdBlpKXcZhhmCGXYZ just cleaned up, whilst the first one did most of the work. And that was my entire game on the right side. The rest of my units didn't actually get too many kills, and my infantry didn't kill much of his infantry. It was mainly the pioneers who came in Phase B and C who actually cleaned up the infantry that was pushing on to me eventually by then. But he should have done it a lot sooner, and he didn't. So that was his fault that he let me able to build up that much. Either way, I think enough's been said about Panzer-Lehr, and I think this was a good game to show you guys how Panzer-Lehr works in general, and I think I explained enough of it during the game. So that's all. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.